Hello and welcome to the Selfish Latina podcast. So this is a time like no other in history. I'm recording this from my home studio, which is much different than where we normally record these episodes. Inside Thoughts Out Loud. Thoughts during a pandemic.
Hello, please leave a message after the tone.
Hi, Denise.
Give me a quick call here.
Hi, Denise.
We received so many responses.
Hello, buenas tardes.
When we finally get the ability to go outside again, are we going to be the same?
So here's what's been going on with me over the last few days as I too have been getting used to my new normal. I have been brought back to 1984, which is the year my father died, 1987, which is the year that my brother died. And I'm finding myself experiencing the exact same feelings that I experienced when they both died. And it's a feeling that's extremely familiar to me and also powerfully sad, and not something that I particularly like experiencing. And so, but I've been allowing myself to experience it, feeling curious as to why this time seems to be triggering those feelings so intensely for me. And after I gave it some thought, I realized that during the two deaths of my father and my brother, I intensely withdrew. And I think I made a decision back then that I would never really allow myself to love, like the kind of love that you love your father or your brother, like the kind of love that you love a family member. I think I made a decision that I would never allow myself to love that deeply ever again, because I never wanted to experience how painful the loss of that love would be. And over the last few days, I realized what it has cost me to not allow myself to love as deeply as I used to allow myself to love. What I realized is I don't want to do that anymore. I want to make a different decision. I realize I've just been kind of unconsciously living out this decision that I made when I was 13 years old and 17 years old. And I don't want to do that anymore. I'm not really sure how to not do it, but it's something I'm paying a lot of attention to and something I realize that I want to change. I'm a different person right now. I'm a 49-year-old woman. I'm married. I have children. I have wisdom. I have experience. I'm not that 13-year-old girl anymore. And I can make a new decision. And I can also take care of that little girl inside me and make sure she feels okay and safe. And so I'm doing it for the both of us. And I'm sharing this with you because I want you to know that if you're experiencing anything like that, that is totally normal, and that these are the kind of things that we'd like to hear from you. Because I want to invite you to share your own version of that story with me. And here's why. If we don't address this as it comes up, and right now it's coming up acutely for so many people, if we don't address it, then we only continue to follow rules that we made up when we were 13 or however old you were when you made up your rule, right? We have a chance right now to transcend this, to get past this. But first we have to acknowledge that it's even happening. I want you to know and feel safe sharing it with me and with all of us so that we collectively can make a decision to move past it and make some new rules. Like for me, I'm going to allow myself to love fully, and it's scary. And I'm realizing that right now, connection is the answer. And to allow myself to feel deeply connected to you is the way through all of this. So here's our idea. We love to hear these stories from you.
You have one new message.
Hi, this message is from Rita. And this time is also teaching me to say no. I've always been the person to say yes to everything, and I've always felt like as if it's been an obligation because I feel like I'm going to be missing out, but people are going to back away and stop being my friends, and I'm going to feel all alone by myself. I don't feel alone at all. I feel like I'm accomplishing so much right now at such a high level that I don't feel alone. Like I feel like I'm actually really full and happy. Don't get me wrong. I have my moments where I'm experiencing those emotions of grief because of the fear of what life was and what it could potentially be or what it might never be again is a big fear, right? It's that when we finally get the ability to go outside again, are we going to be the same? Am I still going to love being the Latin me that gives everybody a kiss on the cheek and a big old hug? Am I going to be socially comfortable being outside?
Hello, my name is Temi, and when I realized about this pandemic is that it's bringing me some sense of abandonment. I am passing through a divorce right now, and I am living by myself in California. I'm from Mexico, and I am in another country, totally isolated from everyone, and I don't have a job, I don't have a husband, and I don't have a home. And then that is the feeling of abandonment that I felt when I was sick for my mother that was abusive with me, physical and emotional, and the abandonment that I feel with my dad. So it's that sensation of abandonment from men that I was pleasing all the time, that I was feeling completely abandoned for myself. And then I realized that I don't want to abandon myself anymore. That if I pass through this, because I will, I promise never abandon myself anymore for anyone, and cultivate my talents and tell me every day that I'm worth it, and never let me down again. So thank you for opening this space, because that was my aha moment. This is my fear, and it's totally valid, and I honor it right now. And I'm glad that it's passing, because on the other hand, I couldn't realize how powerful was it and how I was neglecting myself to cultivate myself and to love myself. So thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Cynthia. This thought came about through an argument that I had with my partner, which we've been having a lot of lately, and I think it has a lot to do with the stress and anxiety that have been caused by coronavirus, or from being locked up in our homes all day. And one of the moments of clarity that came from this experience is that and also her blatantly telling me other times, but for some reason this one hit more in the gut than usual, is that I am a highly defensive person. And I feel like I've known that for a very long time. I've had friends that con quien tengo mucha confianza that would have told me, just a few people, you know, not everyone is willing to tell your truth to your face. And so I've known this about myself, and I've never really been concerned about what that actually means for me or what it does in my life. And I think the moment of realization that I had was that aparte de, which is obviously a really big deal, like making people around me uncomfortable, and especially the people that I love and care about uncomfortable, or upset or annoyed, or just like not trying to be around me because they're worried that I'm just going to get offended about anything, is that I realize that it also cuts me off from a ton of opportunities in my life. I wouldn't say that there's any specific thing any particular moment that I can remember that I've that caused it, but I do realize in a lot of different scenarios where my defenses immediately came up and how that could have pushed people away or, made people not really trust in me as much as they could have because of my constant guards being put up. So the decision that I'm making is to live with less fear, that I can go into situations and not be so afraid of the outcome, and that I'll be okay either way. And ya me pasé de tiempo, so I'm just going to say thanks for even this opportunity to share that with someone.
So that was just a small sample of some of the beautiful responses that you sent in. This message from Tempe, Arizona really made an impact on the entire team.
Hi, Denise. My name is Anjali. First of all, thank you for your video. I have had grief touch my life. I lost my dad and my husband 10 years ago, a day apart from one another. But that's not my insight, although there have been plenty of insights. My insight was actually just even this morning. It's essentially around the topic of trauma bonding, this idea that we will join in partnership and relationship, in any kind of relationship with somebody over a trauma because we want the comfort. And so I have somebody in my life who, well, a lot of people in my life, but somebody in my life who lost someone this past weekend, and not through COVID, actually through a senseless, just a senseless act. And I really want to reach out to this individual and do more than I probably should. And as I've been praying about that and thinking about that, I realize that I don't want to trauma bond. I'm a single woman, and as I think about the potential of maybe being romantically connected to this person in the future, my new decision was to not trauma bond because I want to be with someone who loves me for me, and that I'm a psychologist, I'm a hypnotherapist, right? I'm a healer in all these kinds of ways. It feels good to me to be needed and wanted, and to be able to fix something, but I deserve to be loved just for like who I am, and I deserve to love someone else just for who they are as well. So anyway, a lot there. I think I close to the 2 minutes. And I would love to be on the podcast.
And I'd love to welcome you, Anjali, to the Selfish Latina podcast today. And thank you so much for such a beautiful submission.
Thank you. Yeah, I was really touched by it. More than anything, touched by your admission of your insights and just how vulnerable you were. And I had that day had an insight, right? The one that I plan to share. Just about trauma bonding and how we connect and doing something differently, and as far as how I cultivate relationships in my life.
That's amazing. And it's funny how we kind of walk around thinking that we're the only ones that feel the way we feel, right? We're just like alone in this and nobody understands me. And to be honest, I wasn't that comfortable with sharing that video. Henry really pushed me. We have a joke, like he pushes me out and doesn't let me into the safe spaces. And I have to kind of be out in the cold with my vulnerable thoughts on camera. And, but I trusted him, and I'm happy that it resonated, and that just that day, you had also experienced something similar. So for anyone who's listening, it's worth it. As much and as scary as it is to admit your real truthful feelings, like the ones that you don't want people to know, it's always worth it. Because look, we're on a call right now, and I just met a new friend. And Anjali, I don't know how long you've been following the project, but I'm certainly grateful that you are. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited, and I was excited by the prompt as well. So my name is Enjolie Lafaurie. I am in Arizona, kind of outside of Phoenix, a town called Tempe. Where am I quarantined? I'm in my house, and I actually just moved here. My daughter and I just moved here in December. So although all the nuts and the bolts and pots and pans are organized, this is the picture behind me is probably the only picture I have on any walls in my house.
And it's a gorgeous picture. So how old is your daughter?
She's 20. She's a big kid.
And so was she in college and had to come home? What was her situation?
She is in college. We're really blessed that she and I attend the same institution. So I'm a professor at a community college, and she is a student there. She also works on campus. So yeah, she's living the life right now in some ways because she's home and she's got a mom that can help her with her homework, and yeah.
So when we listened to your submission, the word trauma bonding caught all of our attention. And I feel like I'm familiar with it. And I feel like, generally speaking, even if it's someone's first time hearing it, they can kind of get it. But if you wouldn't mind giving us an explanation of what trauma bonding is to you.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, there are certainly clinical definitions, but when I used, and I guess I should say I'm a psychologist, right? So I wasn't speaking to you when I said that as a psychologist. I was really thinking about it more of in these kind of everyday terms where messiness, relajo, which means like craziness in Spanish, like just feels good because that's what you're used to. And we're in a time, right, where there's all this traumatic situations that are occurring, like a lot of intensity of feelings, and that intensity of feelings is bonding or unites you with another person if they kind of spark, not necessarily even the trauma, spark that recognition of that feeling of, oh, I like that rush, I like that roller coaster, and then I happen to maybe be attracted to you. It's really easy to think about this like in relationship to romantic relationships, but it could even be in parenting relationships. It can be in any relationship with another person, right? Where that a familiar feeling is sparked, and whether you like it or not, you know how to operate really well in that case. And so then you seek it out. You seek it out and you continue to cultivate a relationship, or you continue to kind of cultivate that bond. And then there's this sense that like, oh, now you're homies, now you're romantic, now you're whatever, now you're closer together. Whether or not that's a good thing, or whether or not that's the best scenario or the best person, or whether or not that connection is true or real.
Yeah. So, wow. Okay. Mind blowing, especially since I think a lot of people associate it. Well, I associate it with my family, and, I think, and you just associated it with like relationships of parents. Like any person can be trauma bonded with any other person. And it's really when you're connected with some kind of, it's like an emotional experience you're bonding around, and it feels like a roller coaster. Now, because it has trauma, right, there's a negative connotation. This isn't like, when we're not talking about trauma bonding being like the way through to a positive, fulfilling relationship. Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, just kind of even being vulnerable, it's something that I'm working on, right? So that's the part of your post that like appealed to me so much. Of like, your question was, what insights are we kind of gaining right through this quarantine period? And that was literally that morning, I just realized that there was somebody that I wanted to kind of reach out to and respond to. And if I really examined the true intentions, it would have been out of the cultivation of this trauma bond. It would have been out of, as a helper, healer, psychologist, right? I like to help people. And yes, I like to help because I'm good at it, because I have the skill set, but it also does something for me, right? It does something for me. It makes me feel wanted. It makes me feel good. It gives me a sense of purpose. If I'm working, that's a great thing. If I'm trying to build a relationship, that's not the best thing in the world, right? And the other end of that was, the other end of that realization was that, hey, maybe you could just be liked for who you are, right? Maybe that could be enough instead of what you can do for this person, right?
Yeah. I just for the listeners, because I feel like people are going to want to understand where's the distinction, because when we see someone that we're attracted to, a parent, a friend, a neighbor, a potential romantic relationship, we want to have that discernment, and we don't want to cross, right? And we want to be self-aware, but where's that line where it's not like I can be the helping ear or the friendly ear versus I'm doing this because I'm getting some kind of, I don't know, like ego related hit that I'm helping somebody. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, to me, I think, the line is intention. So I think, so what is my intention? And that is what helped me that morning, right? Being able to have this quiet time and space as I was wanting to kind of reach out to someone. I thought about, well, what does this person need as opposed to what do I want to do, right? Because my immediate response is like, let me reach out, let me try to cultivate, right, a connection. Again, with the idea of to be helpful. So like you said, trauma bonding is not a bad thing. I have every positive intention, but maybe what's really underneath that is my anxiety, right? Maybe what's really underneath that is a desire to be wanted or needed, right? Instead of like, what does the other person need right now? You know, do I have a sense of reassurance that the other person knows that they are on my mind, that the other person knows that I'm willing to help, and that the other person is an adult and can actually like ask me for that, and then I can respond, right? Instead of crafting this scenario that makes the bond, that makes this scenario where I can then feel needed or wanted to.
Yeah, so this is fascinating to me. I think a lot of people are going to be really interested in understanding this, because I think for most people, this happens totally unconsciously, because most of us aren't trained psychologists or healers, right? And so we lack the awareness that this is what we could be doing. And so, and what I'm guessing, since you had that hesitation with this, I'm going to just guess, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong. Part of it was your training, but was another part a past experience where maybe you had done this before and you're like, hang on a second, I'm going to learn from this past thing that I might have done? Is that at all accurate?
Yeah, and I like, and I'll be transparent with this. I mean, it's a part of like my therapy. It's a part of the things like active therapy, you know, those of realizing that some of the errors that I've made in any relationships, again, parenting relationships, romantic relationships, et cetera, have been that what's the glue, like what draws me in? So, and trying to like just do better, just be better.
Yes, I like that question. What's the glue, right? And so can you tell me, when trauma bonding goes wrong, what does the glue feel like, smell like, taste like?
Sure. Let me not use names here. No. When trauma bonding goes wrong, this might be hypothetical. When trauma bonding goes wrong, I think the connection fizzles. It goes wrong when you try to be healthy and you try to shift and change the relationship, and the other person doesn't respond well, or thinks that you're being mean, or thinks that you've changed and you don't like me anymore, you don't love me anymore, right? So when you try to shift out of the unhealthy pattern, they have a negative reaction. What else?
How do you know that you're in it? Like, so the glue, we were talking about the glue, and I love that metaphor, because I see it. I see it in my relationship with my husband and with my children and with my closest of friends. It is, the friendships may have suffered or been challenged by hard stuff, but it's not about, or the foundation isn't the hard stuff. There's so many more parts and pieces to the relationship. So if someone's listening and they're just like, I think I have a bad trauma bond with someone, so-and-so, how do I know that it's that? So eventually the relationship might fizzle out, but right now, if they're in it, how do they know that maybe they need to take a look at the quality of the relationship and maybe re-examine it?
Well, I think one thing that you said, right? So in general, if something resonates, right? If something, a conversation that we ever overhear or something we experience like resonates in our spirit, and it like our ears perk up, right? That's our intuition, that's our inner knowing, right? Everyone has different cultural values of what that thing is called, intuition. But yeah, your body knows, right? There's a little resonance. So one, pay attention to that. And then two, I would suggest like somebody like sit and journal and like, okay, or whatever you do to get quiet and still, right? Maybe it's meditate. Like, what is that pulling up for me, right? What did I think about? And like being really, I want to say like gentle and inviting of your thoughts, you know, as opposed to like judging them and pushing away, like saying, no, I'm silly. Why would I even consider XYZ thought, right? So creating a space, let yourself journal, let yourself meditate so those thoughts come up. Then like ask your best friend, ask the people who watch you all the time in relationships, and they're gonna be like, yeah, I could have told you that about 20 years ago, that you like the same type of person, or that there is a pattern to your life, right? They'll tell you for sure. They will definitely tell you. And you know, as you go on, right, if you want to seek therapy, right, do some reading, right? There isn't anything like yes, the concept was top of mind because of my field, but the concept is also like top of mind because it's something that's really accessible. You could Google this, you could find this on Facebook, right? And just again, go through that same process, see what resonates, sit down with it, ask people for feedback. And always, I mean, I wouldn't be a good psychologist if I didn't say like, oh, we seek help, you know, and seek other professional help if you need that.
Yeah, I love what you said about asking your friends. And it just reminds me of, we kind of walk around thinking that we're hiding really well. Like we're really, like no one really knows the real us, but our friends are like, they know our number. All we have to do is ask them. And so I love that suggestion. Journaling and meditating and being gentle, I think, are also beautiful suggestions. So let's switch gears. We received so many responses, and this is a brand new concept for us. It was really born from a conversation with Henry, Matt, and myself, sharing the different things and me sharing with them my insight. And we were excited to receive so many submissions, and there was something very consistent with all of them, and it was that indeed this quarantine that we're in right now, the virus situation, is definitely triggering a lot of people, and it's bringing them back to traumatic events in their life. And so what advice would you give to people who are kind of re-experiencing these traumas due to what's happening now?
Not a simple question. Okay. Right. I'm like,
Something simple.
COVID-19, Anjali. Okay. So definitely I will always fall back on people cultivating a practice of stillness. And as esoteric as that sounds, I mean meditate. I mean get quiet. I mean go for walks by yourself. Whatever it is that gives you a 10 to 15 minute break from the world, that where you can't really escape yourself, you know, and you can't avoid and you can't distract, but you can come into a place of accepting whatever your experience is. So that's one. Two is, especially if somebody is in coming from a traumatic history, that is actually a very challenging thing to do. Meaning what I just said, kind of sitting with yourself in stillness. So you need to also make sure that you have somebody to talk to, so that whatever comes up, because not everything that comes up when we sit still is nice and pleasant. So we need someone else, hopefully a professional, or if not, a very trusted person that will be able to hold space for you, right? Hold what you're sharing and not make it about themselves. So find some people or a person that you can talk to. And that's, I think, one of the, it's weird to say the nice things about COVID-19, but one of the things we're realizing is that there are lots of ways through technology for us to connect with one another, and that the connection is like even different. Maybe we thought it was about drinking and kind of going for the happy hour, and maybe we thought it was about the sports game or whatever. No, it's just like I need this person and I need to talk to them, right? So cultivating connections, right? What else? Let's see. Well, I'm losing part of the question now.
No, that's fine. I think both of those are great suggestions. Basically, when people are triggered and they're brought back, what would your advice be? One would be the stillness, the meditation, the taking walks by yourself, allowing the hard things to come up, and then having someone to talk to about that, either a trusted friend, a community like the one that you talked about, and then also a professional. So those are the two suggestions. Is there anything else that someone can do?
I would recommend, also that if there are quick techniques, and what I mean by like breathing techniques. So there are things like the 4-7-8 breath or box breathing. Those are immediate things when you're like in kind of a very panicky situation that can bring you out. And those are same thing that you can Google. I would recommend learn those techniques when you're not in the panic situation, right? And then try them when you're getting increasingly more stressed.
Yeah. Those are great. And we will put those in the show notes. We'll put links to those in the show notes so people can start practicing them now. And I love box breathing. I can't remember how to do it. I always need to kind of have someone guide me through it, but it always feels so good. And I'm like, why don't I just memorize how to do this? Because it's like, I don't know what, it's like a fluffy cloud for the soul. It just calms you down,
I could bore you with the neurobiology explanation, but the point is that it gets your body into a relaxation response and out of a stress response.
There you go. There you go.
So how can you be a friend to people that are going through that? For people that are out there really wanting to support their friends that we know are going through a hard time right now, how can we be a better friend?
Again, I can just pull from last night, right? So I've had, so a lot of people are going to think I'm talking about them in this example, but I've literally had in 36 hours have about 3 or 4 people in my life lose someone, and people that are close to me, right? So, yeah, and not necessarily through COVID, right? Only two COVID, 2 non-COVID, right? So grief, right? And that's a part of what you're sharing, what you had shared before that pulled on me, right? I have very close to kind of a grief experience in my life. But anyway, so the one person that I was speaking to last night, I told her, I was like, I feel sorry that I haven't called you because normally she and I are somebody who would talk, right? And also just my background. But I was like, I don't even know what to say to you. And so just admitting like I don't have the words, and just expressing your care and your love, right? But I care for you, I love you, I wish I knew the words, and if there's anything that I can do, please let me know. Let me share another part of kind of grief, because whether we realize it or not, and you spoke to this, we are actually in a time, not only is trauma being triggered, but more than anything, grief is being triggered. And within Chinese medicine, like the lungs actually are the center of grief, right?
Wow.
So
I did not know that.
That it's impacting the lungs and respiration. This is Dr. Lafaurie's woo-woo thoughts, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, our world is grieving. That's truly how I feel, right? We're cleansing and we're grieving. And so anyway, and let me give another piece. My walk with grief is that 10 years ago, my husband and my father passed away a day apart from one another. So the people that helped me the most during that time were just the people that sat with me. There wasn't anything that anybody could have said or done that would have brought somebody back, helped me make sense of things. Just the ability to allow me to talk and to share and to reminisce and to just do whatever I needed to do. That's what was the most helpful to me, right? So there are no magic words in grief. There really aren't, just short of being there and I'm here and allowing somebody to share.
Thanks for sharing that with us. I even got emotional just because I'm, so present to that pain and really appreciate that. And there are a lot of people that are really connected with those times in their life right now. And I mean, it's normal, right? We're all normal. We're all kind of tapping into that sadness and grief. And I will say, it's funny that you talked about the Chinese medicine thing, because I've been experiencing tightness in my chest, and I'm like, oh my God, is this what the beginning of the thing? And I realized, no, this is just intense grief. Is my chest just really getting, And anyway, so I appreciate that a lot. And were you going to say something?
Yeah, there's 2 things actually I want to add. So, and anxiety feels that way too, a tightness, right? And there's a lot of fear going around. And so maybe we're responding to anxiety, especially the more sensitive we are. The other thing too I wanted to say is just there's also secondary loss, right? Or secondary grief. So grief isn't just because you physically lost, right, a soul. It's also a lot of us are having to readjust our work and our school and our life schedules. And so this role that we used to play, that we used to be able to have this joke with our coworkers down the hallway, or this way that we relate to our students, we're grieving that I can't interact with people in the world the way that I normally want to, right? So those are called secondary losses, right? But it's still grieving. You can grieve a role. Anyone who's divorced knows you grieve a marriage, or you grieve the illusion of what you hoped for, right, with a partner, right? There is grief and loss attached to a shift or a transition.
Wow, that's fascinating. Part of what we like to incorporate to these interviews is just a deep appreciation for you, for being the first person that we're inviting and we're kind of kicking off this series with. So thanks so much for picking up the phone and leaving that message and sharing with us about your experience, and then jumping on here with us today with very little notice. I just really appreciate you, Anjali, and just thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you as well.
Well, that was so much fun. And I have to say, it was so awesome to record this episode and have it feel so interactive with you. So thanks so much to everybody that submitted, that called the number, that left us a message. We loved it. And many of you responded that just recording your message helped you, which was an added bonus. And I want to encourage everyone who's listening, even those that didn't send in a response, that this is something you can share with a loved one. You can answer this question with a loved one and share with them some new thought you're having and a new decision you're making. And I promise you, it will make for a beautiful, authentic, and substantive conversation. So thanks for that. And, as you heard in that first video prompt that we sent, my inclination when things get hard, like super duper hard, like how things are right now hard, my inclination is really to withdraw. And this episode showed me that even though we're quarantined and feel very isolated and we're dealing with a lot of intense feelings right now, we have a real chance to be more connected than we've ever been. And I just want to encourage each and every one of you to stay connected to your loved ones and stay connected here at the Selfish Latina podcast, where we'll be serving episodes just like this, just for you, so that we can be just a little bit better when this is over. Our call-in line is open right now. If you'd like to hear what our prompt is, please give us a call at 303-578-9714. Thanks so much for calling in and proving how we can stay connected with each other, even during the quarantine. We can't wait to hear from you.